Hi, this is Regeline Sabat, also known as Gigi. You're listening to Walk With Me podcast. My guest today is Melanie Fusilier. Melanie Fusilier is the founder of 3P Leads Consulting, Parents Pursuing Purpose, and Mend It with Melanie. Welcome to the show, Melanie.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. I'm honored to be your guest today. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's an honor to have you here today. Now, why don't you start off by telling us about you and where you're from?
Oh, where to start? So I'm from Flower Mound, Texas, and I'm a mom of 3 little ones. I have 2 girls and a little boy. Their ages are 7, 5, and 3. So pray for me, okay? But I was a teacher by trade. I taught high school for over 10 years, and I taught teen leadership and adapted PE with special needs kids. And so I've always had a passion to influence youth. And I also, athletics was a big part of my life. And so I was a volleyball, and softball coach as well. And my favorite quote I always have to share is, if you walk with purpose, you collide with destiny. And I started walking with that purpose and just experienced massive transformation when I decided to join the John Maxwell team about 4 years ago. And this was also around the same time that I had my 3rd child, and I decided to stay at home with my kids because that was always my desire. And originally I joined the John Maxwell team just for my own personal growth. And as the journey continued, I realized that God had much bigger plans for me than I could have ever imagined. And so I was on this journey and overcame 2 major struggles, and 2 that were in my past that I didn't even realize were really, struggles. But I was on that journey and overcame those. And now as a mom, a stay-at-home mom, I had a new struggle in that transition because I had a big impact on people's lives as a teacher, and what I realized is that in the role that I'm in and with the skills and experience that I have, what can I do? And so that's why I developed Parents Pursuing Purpose. My company 3P Leads just means passionately pursue your purpose. Because again, when I realized walk with purpose, you'll collide with destiny. And so that's why I founded Parents Pursuing Purpose, because that was my current situation. And I realized influencing youth, what better way than to influence the influencers of youth? And so I also, the second thing that I do is I help mend the people from the inside out. I always say that's my Mend It with Melanie. And I help them, live a pure life, find peace, and then pursue that purpose as well. So that way they can collide with their destiny. And I do that by, one, sharing pure, natural, safe products that I love that perform and help solve hair and skin and wellness struggles. Because one of those struggles that I overcame was I lost all of my hair to alopecia. And so I know how that a struggle with, our looks, while that shouldn't be the important thing that causes our self-esteem, it does affect it. And so I know that struggle. And so I love sharing those products with people. And so I want to help people, feel better. That way they can look better and they can really live better. So that's what I've done, is for Mend It with Melanie, I've coupled my coaching business, and I do freedom ministry as well. And I help mend people from the inside out. And it's been an amazing journey how God is bringing me people with hair struggles that really have deeper struggles, that they need to overcome. And it's been a really fun thing. I used to say from struggling to significance, but what I've realized is that we have significance in us already. We just need to accept that and claim it and walk in that. So.
Yes, ma'am. Walking with purpose is key. Now, Andrea, audience member here, says hi to
Andrea.
Hello, Andrea. Yes. Now, Melanie, can you tell us more about your company, 3P Leads Consulting?
Yeah, so that one, again, stands for Passionately Pursue Your Purpose, because, when I realized that we do have a purpose, I realized that God really has more for us, and He wants that abundant life for us. And so I wanted to help people realize that, because for me on my journey, once I started walking in that purpose, I felt like doors were opening up. I really was living in freedom. And one of my programs is finding purpose in your painful past, because sometimes we're in these pits of pain that we don't even realize are affecting us in our future. And so that's one of the things that we work through step by step is how can, one, being aware of what those are. Two is how can we climb out of those pits? And it's based off of the story of Joseph, who was an overcomer, really for the generation. So again, I'm impacting generations, I feel like, when we go through that journey.
That's right. And you are continuing to impact lives with all that you're doing in our community. That is absolutely amazing. Now, can you tell us more about your experience as a teacher?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I loved my job as a teacher and as a coach. I taught teen leadership. And so it was a really great thing to see, because we had like 30 kids in the class, right? And they come in and, we all have, as human beings, we have these walls up and we feel like we're going to be judged. But they would come in, not know anybody, look around the room, say, oh, I'm not going to like that person. I have nothing in common with that person. But in that class, one of the most amazing classes I've ever taught, they were able to, because we had a social contract. And so they made the rules, if you want to call them rules, but they basically answered 4 questions. How do you want to be treated? How do you think I want to be treated as a teacher? How do you want to be treated by your peers and me as the teacher? And then what do we do in a conflict? And that set the stage and the environment for that class. And by the end of that class, they were, they gained 29 new friends, And so it was a really great thing to see the transformation. It was only a 9 weeks class from the beginning, the growth that they had, the relationships that they had built. I just loved that class. And so that was really hard for me to leave that. And then adapted P as well. Like we were developing, that's with special needs kids, but we were developing a program. It's like multiplication. So we were, as teachers, teaching the students and empowering the students to work with these kids. And many of them went off to do that as their career. And so it was such a blessing for me to be a teacher. And that's why I wanted, when I was a stay-at-home mom, I struggled with my own purpose for a while, because I was, again, having that big impact on people. And of course, I want to have this impact on my own kids, but I felt like, again, that God had more for me, and that we as people, John Maxwell always says, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And so we can influence people in whatever role we are in. And so that's where everything just kind of stemmed from.
That is incredible. Now, you mentioned God a few times. How important is your relationship with God to you?
Oh, the most important. My priorities are my faith, my relationship with God, my husband, my kids, family in general. And I'll be honest, I have to constantly go back to my priorities, because it's easy as an entrepreneur to flip those sometimes. And so there's that fine line of walking with purpose, remembering that while this business is good and it brings financial things, that's not the important thing. The important thing is, one, my relationship with God, pursuing that. 2, my family and making sure they're taken care of, and then it's the others that come after that. But I really believe we can do all. We just kind of have to stay. It says, walk that narrow path. And so that's what we have to do, I feel like, or me anyways, in my faith and my walk. That's
right. Now, Andrea says, leadership is influence, nothing less. John Maxwell.
Yep.
Very powerful.
More, nothing less, just influence. So y'all are all leaders. Those of you watching, again, the significance is already in you. You have that already. You just have to be aware of that, walk in it. I love the name of your podcast, because we're all in this together. We were made for community, and so we're just on this journey together and knowing what our purpose is and helping each other out, really.
Yes, ma'am. I love it. Now tell us more about your experience as a volleyball and softball coach.
Oh, what do you want to know, man? That was some fun times. I'll be honest. I was as a coach, I got better as I went along. By the time I had kids of my own and was coaching, it was kind of too late because then I stopped coaching, but but I was really hard as a coach. I was straight out of college, and it's so funny. My best friend, I coached with her at this high school. And so we're straight out of college, right? And we come in to this high school and we're like giving them our workouts in college because I played volleyball in college, and they're like, what is going on? But you know what? Talk about transformation. We went in there and they were like, oh, and whatever. Maybe they were 2 and something. I don't know. Never winning any games. And we go, okay, well, what's y'all's goal? And they're like, we want to make it to playoffs. And we're like, okay. And so we had this whole theme of dream, believe, achieve. And so that's what we based the whole year off. We made it to playoffs. There were some hardships and some tears and, and all that thing. But I really do believe that if you dream it and you believe it, then you will achieve it. So
that's right. I love it. Very powerful. Now, Melanie, tell us more about the challenges such as sexual molestation that you've had to overcome in your life.
Okay. Well, how long do we have? Let me see. Okay. You know what? The biggest lesson I would say from that is a lesson of forgiveness, and forgiveness to yourself mainly, because that was one thing I didn't realize, is that I needed to forgive myself. Of course, your perpetrator, but also to God. And so I mentioned my hair. I lost my hair to alopecia. And I also mentioned finding purpose in our painful past. And so I'm going to try not to skip around too much. But when I lost my hair to alopecia, I was having troubles with my relationship with God, because I was like, okay, not only was I sexually molested, and that happened to me when I was, young and growing up. So not only that, but now I'm losing my hair, and then all the struggles that come with that, with my self-concept and whatnot. I was like, okay, God, what's going on? And so it was an interesting journey for me, because I sent my diagnosis of alopecia to a healing ministry, and that's all they knew about me. And they said that usually when we have people with alopecia, their struggles are they were abused, not always, but that's a pattern that they have seen. They struggle with unforgiveness, bitterness, and self-hatred. And so if you know about alopecia, it's a autoimmune deficiency. And so in autoimmune deficiencies, your body's attacking itself, essentially. And I don't know if I'm going way crazy here, but I don't always share this with people because, they're like, what? But that is my experience. And so when they said that to me, it was a new awareness for me. At first, I was taken back a little bit, right? And I was like, I don't know about that. But then I started really soul searching and praying with God, because I realized that I thought I had forgiven my perpetrator. But I had just given lip service to that because I was a Christian. I was like, oh, I need to forgive him. But what I realized as I went on with my life, that some of that bitterness was coming back. And I also realized that I did have some self-hatred and guilt. The guilt and shame that comes with being a victim, I think, is something we don't realize and something the enemy uses. And so anyways, that took me on this journey with God of finding my own freedom from my struggles. And that went into this whole freedom ministry. And when somebody, so I mentioned I shared it through products. When somebody came to me and said, do you want to sell these hair products with me? I was like, no, of course not. That's not anything that I want to do. But I prayed about it, and God said yes. And I was like, what? And so I realized then that there can be purpose in our past, and also that God sees the bigger picture that we don't always see. And again, if we just walk with purpose, which means we just walk one step at a time. And for me, it's praying with God, okay, is this my next step? For you, it might just be, one, knowing your purpose, because if you make a decision in your life, if you know your purpose, then you're going to be able to make those decisions easier and walk that narrow path. And anyway, so I'm jumping around, I know, sorry. But my own healing through that I realized God was equipping me to then help others. And so I mentioned the hair products again. People were coming to me with hair struggles, but as I talked to them and built a relationship with them, they were coming to me with those deeper struggles. And so now I offer those programs to them, to my customers, for free, because that's the purpose that God took me through my struggles so I could help other people. Long answer, sorry.
No, that is very powerful. Thank you for sharing that. So
Yeah.
essentially what you're saying is that alopecia, a hair loss, was tied in, it connected with you being sexually molested as well, and not being able to forgive, and the stress that came with that as well. So thank you for raising awareness in regards to that. Now, for the individuals that have been through that as well, who have been, victims of sexual molestation, what would you say to those individuals who are having a difficult time forgiving the individual who molested them?
Yeah, again, because of my faith, for me, I got that strength from God, because my favorite verse is, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. And so I just one night remember spending time with the Lord and saying, I don't think I can forgive this person. There's too much hurt, there's too much anger. And so I remember just saying, God, I give this to you. And I'm getting emotional, but I just said, I can't take this burden myself anymore. I got to give it to you. And I just was listing, everything that I could think of. And I literally felt the weight and the heaviness being lifted. And so I believe that for me, my purpose is to use my experiences to help others. And so all I can do is share my testimony with people. And that's how I overcame it, was giving my burdens to the Lord and through my faith. And I'm a big believer in that. And so I guess if you don't have that faith, one, I would just say, this is the quote I like to say to people about forgiveness. Unforgiveness is like drinking poison yourself, hoping the other person dies, because unforgiveness is only affecting you. The person that you need to forgive, they may or may not even know they hurt you, or, whatever the case might be. But for your own health and your own wellness, I think it's important to really strive to forgive those people, because it's going to have that same relieving feeling, I believe. And it's for you more than it is for them. And I do want to say this: forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or saying that it's okay that they did that to you. Forgiveness, again, is just for your own self and your own health, and releasing that burden from your life, I guess, so that you can walk in that freedom and not have that bitterness, if that makes sense.
Yes, ma'am, it does make sense. Forgiveness truly matters. The Bible says you forgive others 490 times and plus more than that. So it's very important. Thank you for sharing that and raising awareness in regards to that. Now, was there a time in your life journey where you experienced an aha moment?
Oh, yes, many. Here's the thing about aha moments is that anytime I've had an aha moment, it's been usually, sometimes they just come, but usually it's when I stretch myself, right? And I get outside my comfort zone. And, sometimes fear holds us back from doing those things. Fear of failure is a big one. But when you allow yourself to stretch and grow, that is when you can experience those aha moments, right? And so joining the John Maxwell team, that was one of them. Again, I went just for my own personal growth, but then I started realizing the impact I could have on others. And so when I did the Parents Pursuing Purpose group, you have to do lives, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could teach kids, they're younger than me, right? I could teach kids, I know this material, but sharing your own personal story, let's say, or being vulnerable, those are things outside of your comfort zone. But the aha moment comes when you realize that when you share your your real life, not the highlight reel that's on Facebook, let's say, but your real life is that you really can have an impact on people. And that came from me. I'll tell you the exact moment. I was a teacher, and a student came to me with, she was struggling, and she was just telling me, a little bit of things. She didn't really tell me everything, but she was telling me things like, I have this secret. I don't really want to tell anybody. I don't want to get that person in trouble. And I could tell through her conversation that she was being sexually molested as well. And for me, I had never told anybody. So this is when I was a teacher. I myself never told anybody or shared that with anybody. It all came out when my sister, who it had happened to also, told somebody who I think she's my hero, because she's the one that really got us out of that pit, by telling people. So that's one thing I would say too, is to just tell people or get it out, because when you bring those things to the light, they lose their power. Okay, so the aha moment. I get a lot of squirrels, but I get passionate, I want to share everything.
Yes, ma'am.
But she came to me, and I shared with her for the very first time my secret. And I say, I think I know what's going on, because it happened to me as well. And what I realized in that moment was that our experiences can help other people, and that we're going through those maybe for a bigger purpose. Sometimes we focus on the pain and how bad it hurts. But I think when we tune into God and plug into Him and, really ask Him, what is the reason for this? He's going to show us, and it's for a bigger purpose. At least it was for me. So
it's very powerful. Plug into God. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, Melanie, tell us more about what gives you happiness in your life.
Oh man, my family. When I am walking in purpose, I say my family because they're just the immediate, but when I am walking in purpose, I know everything is exactly how it's supposed to be. And then I start, again, those doors opening up. And by doors opening up, I just mean, the blessings are just there, not that they weren't there before, but it's like, again, when you're plugged into God, you just see it. You just see it all. And when we're in my own life, times that I wasn't plugged into God, things like that were happening, but I didn't realize that. And so gratefulness and gratitude is another thing I'm big on, is because when you're focusing on gratefulness and gratitude, then that's going to be your attitude, right? And that'll determine where you go in life. So
that's right. Now, for the audience that's listening, how important is it to let go and let God? Oh,
very important. As a kid, I was very independent. We grew up, we didn't have a whole lot of money. So I became very self-reliant, and that can be a good thing, but that can also be a bad thing, because then I try to do everything on my own. And I believe that God wants us to lean on Him and give our burdens to Him, because those burdens were not supposed to be ours to begin with. So He's just waiting for you to bring it to Him, I believe. And so if you are struggling with something, I would say start there. Just give it to God and let it go, because then you're going to see what He has for you in that.
Amen. And you will experience massive life transformation. I know we can say that for sure. Now, Melanie, what is your best advice for walking with purpose and living a life of happiness?
My best advice, I know it's kind of repeating, but if you know what brings you joy, that's how, you get to your purpose. If you know what brings you joy, if you know what your passions are, knowing what your strengths are, okay, that'll help you kind of discover your purpose. Maybe you don't know what your purpose is, but where you could start, a good way to start is to ask yourself, what brings you to tears? What's something that brings you to tears? And so for me, it was my experience that I had gone through, whether losing my hair or, that struggle. So basically seeing people struggling, right? That brought me to tears. What brings you joy? I love the underdog, right? I love seeing people overcome things. And so knowing where you're, and then what's your strengths? Okay, well, my strengths are my own experiences because I've already walked through those, right? And so knowing those 3 questions, that's how I kind of came to my purpose, right? What is something that brought me to tears? What is something to bring me joy? And then how can I bridge that gap, or what can I offer to other people that's going to use my strengths to help other people? That's what I believe. So.
Very inspiring message. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And thank you for being a guest on Walk With Me podcast. Now, where can the audience find you, Melanie?
Okay, so honestly, the best way if you want to contact me is through my email, and it's just my last name, first initial, fusilierm@gmail.com. Aside from that, you can go to my website, which is www.3pleads.com. And otherwise, my Mend It with Melanie, I have a Facebook page for that. You can try to find me there, or Parents Pursuing Purpose. If you notice, everything has 3 Ps, right? That's why 3P leads. Passionately pursue your purpose, parents pursuing purpose, purpose in your painful past. It's like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, tongue twisters. But yeah.
So hilarious. I love it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to check out Melanie at 3pleads.com. And Melanie, again, thank you so much for being a guest on Walk With Me podcast.
You're so welcome. I appreciate you. It was fun.
Yes, ma'am. Have a blessed day.
You too.